First, I would ask unanimous consent that several letters of support, including one from 13 former Secretaries of Defense, Secretaries of State, and National Security Advisors, strongly endorsing Senator Hagel's nomination, be placed in the record.
It will be placed in the record.
Mr. Chairman, I think the President chose wisely. There are very few people in this country with the experience as a combat infantryman, decorated and wounded, as a business leader, as the second leader of the Veterans Administration, as a United States Senator, as someone who every day understands that the decisions we make will be carried out by young Americans, who's actually looked in the face of young Americans, who's seen them suffer and die for this country. And I think that quality is, if not unique, extraordinarily part of the nominee before us. So again, I think the President made a wise choice. I think Senator Inhofe's discussions of the zero growth is an opportunity for a quote, and let me quote, "There is only one way safely and legitimately to reduce the cost of national security, and that is to reduce the need for it. And this is why we are trying to do in negotiations with the Soviet Union. We are not just discussing limits on a further increase of nuclear weapons. We seek instead to reduce the number. We seek the total elimination one day of nuclear weapons from the face of the earth." President Ronald Reagan in his second inaugural address. So the notion of global zero is not something unique. I'd also point out that as signatories to the Nuclear Disarmament Treaty, the National Non-Proliferation Treaty, Article 11 undertakes to commit at least to a treaty ultimately on general and complete disarmament under strict and effective control. So this is an aspiration that the United States has embraced for a very long time under presidents of both parties. And I think, as Senator Hagel pointed out, this is not unilateral disarmament. This is a long process of making sure we have the nuclear weapons in place to deal with appropriate challenges, some of them very different than the Cold War. But the aspiration is important, and it's been a bipartisan and constant for decades. Is that a rough summary of what you might agree to, Senator?
Yes, it is, Senator. Thank you.
The other issue is that there were several specific points raised with your record, and let me give you the opportunity to respond, if you will, to the questions that Senator Inhofe posed. With respect to votes, if you have the list before you, or
The what, I'm sorry?
Senator Inhofe posed several issues about 2007 vote, 2006 resolution with the Hezbollah, 2003 Syrian sanctions, et cetera. You were prepared to comment. I think it's appropriate that you have an opportunity to comment. If you don't want to do so now, I'd invite you to do so.
Well, and I'd be glad to further comment for the record, because I have none of those specific votes in front of me, in which I will, Senator, listing every vote I took. I would say, though, included in those votes, which I do recall some of them, were a vote in 1998, a vote in 2000, a vote in 2006, specifically against Iran, sanctioning companies, unilateral sanctions that in any way assisted Iran's building their capability of nuclear weapons or rocket or missiles. I voted for those. I recall signing a letter, a Warner Levin letter in 2002 to the President of the United States regarding anti-Semitism in Russia. I wrote a letter to President Clinton specifically in 1999 recommending to President Clinton a number of steps that he'd take with President Yeltsin regarding anti-Semitism in Russia. I remember specifically there were 2 unanimous consent resolutions in 2006 against Hezbollah, against Hamas, against Syria and Iran that we had unanimous consent. I supported on the floor of the Senate. So there's a more complete record, Senator, than just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and those are some of them that I recall. As I noted in one of the responses back to Senator Inhofe, I didn't take any action on any vote, as I suspect every colleague here has the same way to approach votes. On this specific issue, on Hezbollah, Hamas, which I'm on the record many times designating and saying that Hezbollah and Hamas are terrorist organizations. I'm on the record many times in speeches and on the floor of the Senate, in the book I wrote in 2008, saying that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. That is not new. That's in my record. But the way I approached every vote I ever took in the Senate was based on what I thought could be most effective, what was at the time, what was the situation at the time, how could we do this smarter and better. I've always believed that the President of the United States is the elected leader of America. He has within his responsibilities, and I believe it's clearly articulated in Article 2, to conduct foreign policy. I always thought the best way to deal with foreign leaders was let the President do that directly, for us to communicate with the President. I don't think there was a letter that I can recall that I signed to a President on any of these issues that I agreed with it, that I didn't sign. So it was never a matter of differing objectives here. It was a matter of how best we could do it. I mentioned in 2008, the Secretary of State didn't want one of those unilateral sanctions to go forward during the Bush administration, wrote a letter. 2001, which was one of the issues that Senator Inhofe brought up. The Bush administration was opposed to a 5-year renewal of ILSA. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but every one of the decisions I made, every vote I cast, was based on, at the time, what I thought made the most sense.
Senator, you have clearly stated that you are supportive of the President's efforts to support the State of Israel. And you have indicated, in specifically the example of Iron Dome. I recall a statement recently by Defense Minister Barak that he has seldom seen or never have seen the same level of military support to the State of Israel that he's seen in the last several years. And you are, I presume, and I hope, fully prepared to carry out that same effort, that same level of support, because of the vital interest that we share with the State of Israel.
Well, I am, and I have a record on that. In my book in 2008, interviews, speeches, I have always said I am a supporter of Israel. In some cases, I've said I'm a strong supporter of Israel. In some cases, I've even written, and I think it's in my book, that we have a special relationship with Israel. We always have had. So I've never voted against Israel ever in the 12 years I was in the Senate, whether it was military authorizations, additional supplemental appropriations. The record is very clear on that. I might add, as long as we're on this subject, that, and Senator Nelson may have a clearer view of this since he was just in Jerusalem, there have been a couple of recent statements made by the current Israeli ambassador to the United States, the former Israeli ambassador to the United States, now the deputy foreign minister of Israel, that were fairly positive about me. So I think all the Israeli leaders I have dealt with over the years and met with, and I've been to Israel many times. First two times I was in Israel is when I was the head of the USO. I kept the Haifa USO open. We didn't close it. There was a lot of pressure when I took over the World USO to close USOs around the world, and we did. There was a lot of pressure to close the Haifa USO. I'm the one that made the decision not to do that. The former chief of naval operations of Israel, Admiral Zev Elmog, who has recently been interviewed about me, has strongly supported me and said specifically that I was a strong friend of Israel. The current, now the USO is closed, but the current then director of the USO, a lady by the name of Gila Gerson, who lives in Haifa, said that I was a strong supporter and friend of Israel. So I think my record's pretty clear on my support of Israel, and I would, of course, continue to support the President's policies, and I think he's been as strong a supporter of Israel as maybe any president since 1948, when Harry Truman helped give birth to Israel. This president has been there. As he said, I have Israel's back. 3.1 billion in assistance. Almost $300 additional million out of the Defense Department for Iron Dome. What we're doing with David Sling, Arrow. I'm a strong supporter of all of those programs and will continue to support them.
Thank you.